What this office does is two major tasks. One, and the simplest one to explain, is releasing a deed of trust. The other thing we do, of course, is foreclosures. In some states, you simply sign a promissory note, a promise to pay back to the lender the amount that is owed, and if you go into default, then the lender has to go to court and foreclose on you through the courts, which is a time-consuming process, expensive for everybody, but that's commonly how it's done in the eastern states. A lot of the western states have a trustee system where along with the promissory note, you also sign what's called a deed of trust, where you are agreeing that you're going to pay back the lender, but you also are going to sign a document granting a lien on your property to that lender. And then when you pay off your loan, the lender is supposed to ask the trustee to release the lien, that's us, or if you've gone into default,
167,000, Gordon.
You have agreed to a non-judicial process whereby the lender can ask us to foreclose on the property and sell it at auction. Among these trustee systems, however, Colorado is unique. We're the only state that has a public trustee system. In most of the trustee states, say Texas for example, you have a private trustee that is named, and the private trustee basically works for the bank. And the bank can fire the trustee, replace the trustee with somebody else, and that trustee may be located hundreds of miles away. You're in San Antonio in foreclosure, your trustee office is in Dallas or Fort Worth, and it's very inaccessible. Colorado has a system of public trustees established by the legislature way back in 1894, so that each county has its own trustee, a public official who makes sure that your rights are being respected by the banks. I don't work for the bank, and I'm certainly going to be, if the bank is not, the bank has a right to foreclose, and the borrower has signed documents saying if I don't pay, you have a right to do this. But the bank has a legal process they have to follow, and I'm going to hold them to those deadlines. If they're required to get documentation to us by a certain day, or we delay the sale, if they don't do it, I'm going to delay the sale, and I'll hold them to the law and strictly enforce that. I'm a source of information for people who don't really have any other source of information to go to. So it's nice to be able to talk to people and say, well, these are your options. This basically is what the situation you're in, and no, you don't need to be getting out of your house now. It's the sale date, the earliest possible sale date is 2 months away, and there's time to try to find out how much you owe, see if you can put the money together in one way or another, refer people to Colorado Legal Services, or if you refer them to housing counselor, people who can offer them actual advice as opposed to just educational information, which is what I'm offering. If you go into default, the lender at some point will make an election to notify us that you're in default and to demand that we sell that property at auction. And that's called a notice of election demand. It's a public record that we record with the county, and that starts the foreclosure process. When they send us that documentation, that request, we make sure that the package that they send includes all the documents required under Colorado law. And if it does not, we reject it, request that they send the correct information. But once they have that package put together, we record the document and set a sale date for a non-agricultural property. That sale date initially will be about 4 months out, so 120 days from when the documents are recorded. We will then notify the borrower and anyone else who has a lien on the property of what their rights are, how they can cure their default, how they can pay the amount of money to get back current on the loan. We send that out a couple of times. We also have a publication we're required to do in the newspaper. And through this process, we're available to answer questions that the borrower might have about, well, how does this process work? What happens next? What are our options? We can at least educate people on these are the options, and they can seek their own advice and make their own decisions. But a key part of this in Colorado is what we call the right to cure. So in Colorado, you have the right to demand a statement from the lender of exactly how much you are behind on your loan. And they have to provide that statement within 2 weeks. And if you pay that amount within the deadline that's stated on that document, the foreclosure is over and you are now current back on the loan. So this is different than places where you might be trying to work directly with the bank. The bank gives people one number and then they pay it, and then they say, well, we want a little bit more, or something along those lines. If you cure through the public trustee office, the foreclosure stops. If you don't cure, eventually at some point, then we will end up going to auction. And the auction is started by the lender placing a bid of what they believe the property is worth, up to but not more than the amount that they are owed on the loan, and we sell it at public auction.
EPC 2016-00167-4550 Holly Ridge Drive, Colorado Springs. The holder of the note is Freedom Mortgage Corporation. They bid $123,554. Deficiency.
The auctions are open to the public. You're welcome to attend an auction and see what happens, which essentially is that investors come and they bid against the bank.
$173,000 Superior.
174.
$174,000 Gordon.
To pay the highest price for this property. And by them bidding on the property, that reduces the amount of money that is still owed by the borrower. Because the bank may bid on the property less than what they're currently owed, the bank could pursue that amount, which we call a deficiency. They could pursue that against the borrower. They usually don't, but they could. And so by investors coming to sale, they reduce that deficiency, leave the borrower with less debt to pay, or they may even pay more than what the bank is owed, in which case there's money that would be available to be paid to the borrower.
We have enough money. They're cashier's checks. They are payable to us. They are signed this property EPC 2016-00182, located at 6385 Village Lane, Colorado Springs. It is struck from the pre-sale list and sold to Pikes Peak Homes, LLC for the winning bid of $58,000 at $11.08.
After sale, the owner remains the owner of the property for another 8 days while a variety of legal deadlines are met, but eventually title transfers over to whoever bought it at sale. It may be the bank, it may be this investor. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. And this ends up being annually about $50 million of fiduciary responsibility, of monies that are paid to us that then we owe to somebody else and need to track and make sure it gets to the right people. This is on an annual budget of, revenue budget I should say, of about $1 million a year. We are fully a fee-for-service office. We charge fees for the foreclosure and for the release, and those fees are more than sufficient to pay for our actual operating costs. We use a county building, we occupy a county building, but we pay the county for that service. We pay the county for providing payroll services, security, legal services, all that kind of thing. We're completely self-sufficient, and in fact, about 40% of our annual revenue ends up being unspent, and so we send that over to the county to go into the general fund, several $100,000 a year, that then becomes available to the county in general. It's good to be a source of honest information for people who are in a lot of trouble.